How do you go from being the frontman for one of the top bands of the early 2000s to a staunchly conservative country singer who isn't afraid to berate his fans at concerts and stir up controversy? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video, the story of STAIND frontman Aaron Lewis. Before we dive in, I want to point out something pretty crazy about Aaron Lewis, and that is he's been at the top of the musical charts in two completely different genres, in rock as the frontman for STAIND and outlaw country as a solo artist. Alright, let's get into it and take it back to the early 90s, 1993 more specifically, when STAIND vocalist Aaron Lewis and guitarist Michael Mashak met at a Christmas party in Springfield, Massachusetts. STAIND's lineup would be complete by 1995, the same year they started performing live, with the addition of drummer John Wysocki and bassist Johnny April. They originally gained a following by touring throughout the northeastern United States, covering songs from acts including the likes of Korn, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and Rage Against the Machine. Fans of STAIND most frequently reference their first two records, 1996's Tormented and 1999's Dysfunction, as having a heavier sound compared to their later records, which were more radio-friendly and arguably more watered down. It would be a chance encounter with Limp Bizkit, which helped propel the band into the mainstream. In 1997, through an introduction from Aaron Lewis's cousin named Justin Cantor, they got on the same bill as Limp Bizkit, whose frontman Fred Durst signed STAIND to his Flip Records label in 1998. It was in a 2000 interview with the Times leader. Lewis talked about how their music has impacted their fans, saying, "Kids came up to me all the time and thanked me for saving them through my lyrics. They say they wouldn't be here talking to me if it wasn't for what I was saying in those songs." It was in the same interview Lewis also talked about opening for Korn's Family Values tour in 1999 and how that was a big moment in their career and it made STAIND feel like things were finally turning a corner for them. He would add, "We're playing in front of much more people and things are going amazing. It's really surreal." Things shifted for the band in 2001 with the release of their third record, Break the Cycle, which contained the smash hit It's Been a While, which would help the album debut at the #1 spot on the Billboard 200 chart. It would be a user on Reddit who perfectly summed up how this was a departure point for hardcore fans of STAIND, writing, "They changed sound towards a radio-friendly sing-along poppy sound. A lot of people don't even know about Tormented and Dysfunction, with their introduction with STAIND starting at Outside and It's Been a While, which, while being inoffensive enough, aren't exactly heavy." No matter your personal opinion of STAIND, their commercial success was undeniable. During their time together so far, they've had 5 chart-topping singles, they've released 8 studio records, and sold more than 50 million albums. 2001 would also be a time period when harsher critics would claim STAIND became butt rock, a style of hard rock and heavy metal music that is considered watered down both musically and lyrically to garner maximum radio play and mainstream acceptance, at least according to Urban Dictionary. If you're wondering what other bands are categorized as butt rock, even though it's somewhat of a matter of opinion, acts like Theory of a Deadman, 3 Days Grace, Puddle of Mud, Stone Sour, Seether, Shinedown, as well as Nickelback can probably be part of that list. STAIND's albums following Break the Cycle would also top the Billboard album chart, including 2003's 14 Shades of Grey and 2005's Chapter 5. In 2011, original drummer John Wysocki would leave the group, and by July of 2012, the band officially announced a hiatus. But that didn't mean that Aaron Lewis was taking a musical hiatus. In fact, he would go in a completely new direction, musically speaking. Lewis's neck tattoo, which reads "Don't Tread on Me," gives you a pretty good clue about what's to come in the story. He made the switch to becoming an outlaw country artist and became really vocal about his conservative views. He would make the transition to outlaw country thanking Kid Rock. He made the transition to outlaw country partially because of Kid Rock, who he actually toured with, telling Gibson, "STAIND were touring with Kid Rock and he and I got along well. I'd ride on his bus and he'd be playing George Jones and Hank Williams and old country stuff that I grew up on." Lewis was looked after by his grandfather for the first 8 years of his life, and he always had country music playing in the background, so for him, it brought back good old memories. Besides his love of country music, Lewis also talked about how he needed a break from STAIND's heavy subject matter, which included the topics of death, addiction, depression, and despair. So what did people actually think about Aaron Lewis's move to country music? Well, he would reflect on it in 2014 in an interview with the Battle River Inquirer, stating, It was like starting from scratch because people held it against me that I had a career somewhere else first. Being a naysayer is the oldest profession in the book. You can't make everybody happy, so you try to make yourself happy. Despite the naysayers, Lewis has found commercial success in country music too. He would release his debut EP titled Town Line in 2011, and that would contain the hit song Country Boy, which would earn him several nominations from the Country Music Television Awards. Since his debut country album, he's had 3 full-length solo records make it to the top 5 of the US country charts, and his new career as a country artist didn't spell the permanent end of his original band STAIND either. After taking a break in 2012, the band got together in 2014 and played the Welcome to Rockville Festival, as well as in 2017 at Aaron Lewis's charity golf tournament, before they formally regrouped in 2019, going on tour, releasing a live album, and releasing a new studio album in 2023 titled Confessions of the Fallen. One thing about Lewis is that he's outspoken about his political views and isn't afraid to get in people's faces on a personal level. He's worn a Make America Great hat on his most recent tours, however he's alternated that with a different hat that reads F you Joe on it. In his 2021 single Am I the Only One, he openly criticizes musician Bruce Springsteen's all-American image after Springsteen said he would move to Australia if Donald Trump was elected once again. Music critic Bob Lefsetz had this to say about Lewis's song Am I the Only One in his popular industry newsletter called The Lefsetz Letter, writing, "It's heinous. The right-wing wanker has recorded a song that should have been played at CPAC," referring to the Conservative Political Action Committee, in between speeches. Lewis took things to another level to show his support for Donald Trump's 2024 campaign by killing 32 coyotes and then arranging them into the letters Trump 24 and posting the image on social media, which of course drew sharp criticism from PETA, who called him, and I quote, "a pathetic washed-up musician desperate for relevance." But his STAIND bandmate Mike Mashak would give his take on Lewis's outspokenness in an interview with the Loaded Radio podcast, saying how Lewis has always been a very opinionated person and he has a right to share his views. Lewis has also put his brutal honesty on display in his interaction with fans and musicians alike. You might remember that STAIND was signed to Fred Durst's label early in their career, so the two have known each other for quite some time. It was a run-in at the airport between Lewis and Limp Bizkit guitarist Wes Borland that caused Borland to publicly say, "I wish nothing but the worst for him." He talks about what happened on an episode of the Talk To Me podcast, saying that the two ran into each other at the Jacksonville airport, and Borland mentioned he was on his way home to LA, to which Lewis replied, "Nah man, remember where you came from. Florida is your home, not LA, that's home." And I just went, "F you man," and I never talked to him again after that. I don't want to be a talker, but I have no problem talking shit about the guy. He's terrible. In another incident with a fellow artist, Lewis famously chastised pop singer Christina Aguilera in 2011 for messing up the national anthem until he did so himself during the 2014 World Series. Lewis has also been known to talk back to fans at live shows if he doesn't like the way they're acting. It was at a show in Texas, a fan requested a song in Spanish, to which he replied, "I'm an American, I don't speak Spanish." At another show in Indianapolis, Lewis would go off on a concert goer after the fan repeatedly shouted requests while he was singing. He would respond, "We're going to remove you from this f***ing club. Shut the f*** up. Writing this f***ing song broke me, and you're yelling out a different song, you f***ing piece of." So what's Lewis's take on the bad press he's received? Well, he would say he's the victim. In an interview with Taste of Country Online, he defends what some call his onstage outburst, saying, "The hardest thing to deal with is these situations. I'm always the one hung out to dry. There's no context put into it." So what do you guys think of Aaron Lewis and STAIND over the years? Let me know in the comments section below. If you guys want to hear more stories about STAIND, and more specifically a full history on the band, let me know in the comments section as well. And we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.